The cloth slipped from her trembling fingers and fell to the cold metal floor. And in that breathless instant, the human's heart stopped because the universe finally forced him to face a truth it had been carving into him through pain for years. He stood frozen in the dim chamber of a ruined station drifting above a dead planet. A thin and broken man whose body carried more scars than strength, whose eyes reflected exhaustion, shaped by rejection, hunger, and silence. Once he had believed in the word human. Once it meant honor, loyalty, and protection. That belief died the day he hesitated. He had been a soldier on the border fleets, trained to obey orders without question, trained to fire without looking, trained to silence his thoughts. When the command came to purge unarmed refugees during a classified operation, his hands shook. He saw fear in their eyes. He heard children crying. He paused. That pause destroyed his life. His commanders dragged him before a tribunal that showed no shame. They called him defective. They said empathy was a flaw that endangered humanity. They burned a mark into his neck, a symbol of disgrace, and cast him into exile beyond protected space, where law ended and survival became punishment. From that day on, he learned that hunger was easier to endure than loneliness, and silence could scream louder than any battlefield. He hid from human patrols, who hunted deserters for sport, and from alien scouts, who hunted humans without mercy. He survived by becoming invisible, by expecting nothing, by feeling less. That was why he almost walked away when he found her days earlier, bleeding near a shattered airlock, her silver blue blood staining the wreckage like spilled starlight. Aliens were deaf. Everyone knew that. Stories said they were cold, merciless, incapable of compassion. But she was barely conscious. Her breathing was shallow. Her hands reached out blindly, as if searching for something already lost. She whispered, not a threat, not a command, but a sound filled with fear and shame. That whisper touched something inside him that exile had not managed to kill. He lifted her despite his shaking arms. He carried her into hiding. He tore his only blanket to stop her bleeding. For days they lived between alarms and silence, while patrol drones passed outside and searchlights cut through the ruins like knives. She woke slowly, terrified of him, expecting pain, expecting cruelty, because her people taught her that humans were monsters who destroyed everything they touched. She flinched when he moved. She apologized for bleeding. She apologized for breathing. She kept her eyes down, as if being seen was a crime. One night, barely louder than breath, she whispered that she was not clean. He thought she meant wounded. He told her no one was clean out there. Over time, fragments of truth passed between them, traded like fragile glass. She was not a warrior. She was hunted by her own kind. Her species believed purity was survival, because long ago difference nearly destroyed them. Those born wrong were erased quietly, without ceremony, without memory. She carried something ancient in her blood, something forbidden, something her people feared more than extinction. He told her about the brand on his neck, about how humans feared empathy more than enemies, about how weakness was punished harder than treason. Pain recognized pain. Silence became trust. Outside, hunters closed in. Human soldiers traced his signal through debris fields. Alien sentinels followed her genetic echo. Both sides wanted blood. Sleep became impossible. Every sound felt like death approaching. He watched her when she thought he slept and saw how she wrapped her arms around herself as if trying to disappear. She watched him when he cleaned his wounds and saw how he never flinched, as if pain had become familiar enough to feel like home. In those quiet hours, something fragile formed between them. Not love, not desire, but understanding. When escape became impossible and the walls shook with approaching boots, she stood before him trembling, eyes shining with tears she refused to let fall. and whispered again that she was not clean, that what lived inside her would make him hate her, that humans always did. He answered softly that humans had already hated him enough to last a lifetime. Then she let the cloth fall. What he saw stole the air from his lungs. Beneath her skin glowed ancient symbols, lines and patterns that pulsed like a living language, reacting to his presence as if recognizing him. His chest burned. His scars ached. His heart raced as if it remembered something his mind had forgotten. In that instant, he felt less alone than he had in years. Before he could speak, the doors exploded open. Human soldiers stormed in, weapons raised, armor marked with the same insignia that once owned him. Alien hunters followed, tall and merciless, blades humming with judgment. Orders collided in the air. Both sides shouted commands. Both sides aimed at her. She stepped forward to surrender, shoulders bowed, ready to die as she had been taught. He moved without thought. He placed himself between her and the weapons. Shots rang out. Pain tore through him. He fell hard, breath crushed from his lungs, blood spreading beneath him. He tasted iron. He heard shouting fade. As darkness crept in, memories not his own flooded his mind. Not dreams, but truth. Humanity had once been a bridge species, chosen not for strength, but for empathy, able to bond where others could not. They felt deeply. They connected easily. They were meant to unite, not conquer. The aliens had feared that bond. They severed it. They called it impurity. They erased it from history and taught their children to fear it. Humans forgot who they were and learned to fear each other instead. The marks on her skin were not a curse. They were keys. His weakness was not failure. It was compatibility. As his shaking hand touched hers, the symbols ignited with blinding light. Power surged, not violent, not cruel, but vast and warm, like something waking after a long sleep. Weapons failed. Armor shut down. Lights flickered. The station groaned as systems older than memory came alive. He rose slowly, not healed, not strong, but connected. Pain remained, but it no longer owned him. Soldiers dropped their guns in terror. Alien hunters stepped back, fear cracking their perfect discipline. The commander saw not a monster, but a truth they had buried. He stood beside her, his blood answering hers, a broken human and an unclean alien bound by something stronger than fear. She cried then, silent tears running down her face, not from shame but relief. He placed a hand on her shoulder, steady despite the pain, and for the first time since exile, he felt whole. The hunters fled. The soldiers retreated. No orders came. In the quiet that followed, the universe seemed to breathe. He looked at her and understood that survival was never about purity or strength. It was about choosing each other when everything else demanded separation. In that ruined station above a dead world, hope was reborn, fragile but real, carried by two beings the galaxy had tried to erase, standing together and refusing to disappear.